What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou from the Duran, and I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. And today we're going to be taking a look at 3-month Brexit Day extension. All right, Alexander, Theresa May was in Brussels. No progress was made. It looks like we may be moving towards a 3-month extension of Brexit. It also looks like, I was reading from various articles, that independent group may also be looking to pick off some more Tories as well to try and force a second referendum. You also have some news to convey to the viewers about May's position as Prime Minister, and that may be coming to an end as well. A lot of activity going on in Brexit. What is happening, Alexander? Let our viewers know.
Right. I think you've hit on the two most important things. The first is that, yes, Theresa May has negotiated with the Europeans again. There's been this constant pretense that Theresa May engages in, that she's going to get the Europeans to make concessions on the deal which she negotiated, which Parliament rejected. And of course, what happens is she goes around, she pretends to negotiate. She always comes back with the same answer, which is no, we're not prepared to make any concessions to you. And so that negotiation is going nowhere. Now, what is happening simultaneously is that she is trying to play for time, delay as far as possible. I think she's calculating on a vote on her deal, the same deal that she presented to Parliament before, sometime around the middle of March, when it's too late, and hopes that at that point she'll be able to say to the House of Commons, it's either my deal or a no-deal Brexit. And I think she's hoping that, faced with that situation, the House of Commons, most of whose members are opposed to a no-deal Brexit, will support her deal. I think that's her calculation. But we now see the British establishment, the British Remain establishment, the pro-EU British establishment, they're waging a new war on two fronts. They're putting pressure on May through the Remain ministers in the Conservative government to agree a 3-month extension to the Brexit timetable. So the Brexit Day will not be on the 29th of March, which it is at the moment, but 3 months later. They are also telling Theresa May that she must resign as Prime Minister after the May local elections. So that will remove her from the scene after Brexit has been postponed. Whilst at the same time, we see pressure growing on the Labour Party through the leverage of this breakaway group to get Jeremy Corbyn to commit himself to a second referendum. So the game plan appears to me to be as follows: 3-month extension on Brexit, remove Theresa May from the scene, force Corbyn to agree to a second referendum. That seems to be the game plan at the moment. A lot will depend now on what Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn do. Will Theresa May stand her ground on Brexit Day? Will she continue to insist that it will happen on the 29th of March? And will Jeremy Corbyn continue to insist that a second referendum is not a good idea? We shall see.
All right, so just to recap, and I'm trying to understand this as well, there's 11 MPs now that have gone to this independent group that is pushing for the referendum or pushing for the Remain.
It's 12. It's actually 12 now.
Okay, it's 12.
Yeah.
The EU obviously is positive or negative about the 3-month extension?
It's positive.
Okay.
I mean, they've given a clear sign that they would agree to it.
Okay, so the EU wants that 3-month extension. What are the forces right now in the House of Commons in the UK that are pushing for this second referendum and for the Remain outside of the independent group that's been formed and the EU? What are the other forces that are pushing for this? And conversely, what are the forces in May's government, in the House of Commons, that are pushing for a hard Brexit?
Right.
And are working against this other group.
So let us actually talk about the independent group, because this is part of the blackmail that is now being held over both Theresa May
because it's not
and
that many
Jeremy
people.
It's not many
people, and we said in our last video they're not that powerful either. So how are all these forces pushing May and pushing the UK to this predicament?
Exactly. There are not many of them. By the way, our prediction a few weeks ago that Conservatives would join it also, and that it would not just be a Labour split, but a Conservative Labour grouping in the centre, or rather I should say former Conservative Labour grouping in the centre, has proved to be true. I think I would just mention that. Okay. But what they're trying to do is that you have pro-EU people inside the Labour shadow cabinet. That's Jeremy Corbyn's inner leadership group, led by a man called Keir Starmer, who is the Labour Euro spokesman. And you have a pro-EU group within Theresa May's cabinet, led by the Chancellor Philip Hammond. And what these people are basically saying to Corbyn and to Theresa May is, if you continue along the course that you are insisting on, in Theresa May's case, insisting on Brexit happening on the 29th of March, in Jeremy Corbyn's case, insisting that there will not be a second referendum, what you are going to see is more and more Conservative and Labour MPs from the centre moving to join this independent group that has now been created. So that is the blackmail. I don't think, if you analyse it, if you unpack it properly, it's really a very big threat. And the reason it's not a big threat is for exactly the reason you said. These are not important people. The opinion poll response has not been very good. In fact, in terms of Labour politics, it appears to have rallied support behind Jeremy Corbyn. And I suspect this kind of push with Theresa May is going to rally support behind sticking to the existing Brexit timetable. And you asked about the other question. What are the countervailing forces? Most Conservative MPs and most Labour MPs represent constituencies which voted Brexit. They understand perfectly well that if they oppose Brexit or appear to oppose Brexit, their political positions are going to become extremely vulnerable. And Nigel Farage, and we must never forget him, is now very far advanced on setting up his own pro-Brexit party, which is going to be a strong political force in any future general election if Brexit has not happened by then. So that is what I think is going to hold most Conservative MPs and most Labour MPs behind their respective parties, that's going to make this tactic ultimately fail, and which increases the prospect of Brexit happening on the 29th of March. But once again, we see the British establishment pulling out all the stops, trying to find ways both to stop Brexit happening and trying to stop Corbyn becoming Prime Minister.
What would it signal if Theresa May does agree and does ask for that extension?
Well, I think if she does that, there's going to be a huge row. I don't just mean a row. I mean, there's going to be absolute civil war between the Conservative Party, within the Conservative Party, because to be absolutely clear about this, the anti-Brexit, pro-centrist Remain group within the Conservative Party is very small. It is largely confined to the Conservative Parliamentary Party and to some members of the cabinet, and it is not representative of Conservative opinion in the country, either the party membership or Conservative Party supporters, people who vote Conservative in general elections. So if Theresa May delays Brexit, there will be a gigantic row. I think there will be a split. I think her position as party leader will be become untenable. I mean, obviously she's going anyway, so that may not concern her. But I think the idea that they will get a pro-EU Conservative to become Prime Minister is completely delusional. If this happens, if there's any attempt to do that, the next Conservative leader will be an extremely strong supporter of Brexit. Probably not Boris Johnson. It could even be Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Is all of this playing into the EU's hands? I mean, this is a good tactic, or this is a good outcome for the EU to have all this chaos.
Absolutely.
Whether it's extension or not, whether May stays or not, if the Tories, fall apart and split, as Labour Party is splitting. I mean, this is very good for the EU to kind of showcase this and say, look what happens when you decide to leave Europe. Your party, your country, your constituents, it's just all going to break down.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what it is. I think there's a big spoiling exercise being carried out there. The EU leadership, even if they accept that Britain is probably leaving, are determined to make this process as difficult as possible, and they're determined to cause as much chaos in Britain as possible. And so, absolutely, they're loving this. But they could not do this if they didn't have members of the British political class, people within the Conservative and Labour cabinets, and members of the civil service, including Theresa May's own negotiator, Ollie Robbins, who was caught saying that there should be a 3-month extension. If these people weren't working more for the EU than they were for Britain. Can I come back to a point you made to me in an earlier video, a program that we did some weeks ago? In this situation, where it is perfectly clear that the deal which has been negotiated is unacceptable, and where there is a clear democratic decision that Britain should leave the EU, that decision having been made in a popular referendum, which it was agreed would be binding, what ought to be happening now is that the government and the opposition and the civil service should all be working together to achieve a no-deal Brexit which involves as little disruption as possible. They should not be working to carry out all these extraordinary plots and plans which can only be in the interests of the EU. That is absolutely putting the interests of the EU above those of the country, of Britain itself.
Yeah, the best the best outcome for the UK and to stick their middle finger, up at the European Union, the best outcome they could do is to get to that hard Brexit and have the country pass through whatever difficulties it's going to pass, cross that chasm, and come out stronger on the other end. That would be the worst outcome for the European Union.
And the optimal, the best possible achievable outcome for Britain
right
now. I mean, you can go back, you can dial back 2 years ago and say, Theresa May might have negotiated a better deal. The fact is she didn't. You are where you are at this moment in time. You're given a choice between a deal which is clearly unacceptable and a no-deal Brexit. Now, a no-deal Brexit presents certain problems, but they are temporary problems.
Exactly.
They can be overcome. And there is no objective reason why a country like Britain cannot succeed economically outside the EU, exactly as you say. That's not what the EU wants. But if you are putting the interests of Britain first, that is the objective you work towards now, whatever views you might have had about this issue 2 years ago. That is what you should be doing. That is what your duty is as a British politician and a British leader. Anything else is undemocratic and wrong.
And Britain, if there's one country that really can thrive outside of the EU, it is without a doubt Britain. There's no doubt about it.
I would agree. I mean, it's offshore already. I mean, it's an island. It's not part of the Eurozone. So it's not a lot Eurozone in the way countries are. It's massively sophisticated and very big financial services industry centered on the City of London, which is one of the world's biggest financial centers. And it has large trading links with multiple countries. And, of course, it has the advantage of the English language. So Britain should be able to make a great success of it. If it works to that objective, it is being held back by a political class which is intent on sabotaging what the British people themselves voted for in a democratic referendum, which that same political class told the British people would be binding.
All right. So what's next, Alexander? What's coming up ahead? We have how many more days? 36 days?
I think that's right. I mean, 6 weeks. 6 weeks, exactly. But I mean, so the clock is now dialing down. As I said, I think an awful lot depends on two people, neither of whom, I'm afraid, have a reputation of sticking to their positions on Brexit. One is Theresa May. I mean, she's going to come under a lot of pressure to agree to this 3-month extension. I think, on balance, she won't, but we shall see. The other is Jeremy Corbyn, who's going to come under enormous pressure to agree to the second referendum idea. Again, I don't think he will. I think both of these two people will hang firm. But we will see. The pressures on them are huge and should not be underestimated.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran in the description box down below. You will find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. It really helps us out a lot. And you can get a copy of this video in audio format. Follow us on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can also go to theduran.com and see all the articles that Alexander is linking up to every day. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, everybody, take care.